Hey, Sarge, it's him again.
I'll call Captain Reed. Sit over there, Mahoney.
Police Academy looked harmless on the surface. Blue lights splashing across city streets, recruits tripping over barricades, the kind of rough-edged comedy that packed theaters back when crowds filled 500-seat houses, and the smell of buttered popcorn never left your jacket. This was a film made before studios had modern safety protocols, back when actors were still expected to push themselves to the very edge for a shot. But behind the gags and pratfalls was a production teetering on chaos. Real injuries were covered up, stunts went wrong, and the cast was thrown into dangerous situations no modern studio would ever allow. And buried under all the slapstick was a tangle of personal tensions, unspoken crushes, and a project that nearly collapsed before anyone even heard that first siren. This was an era of filmmaking that demanded a human cost, and these are 22 facts about Police Academy, 1984, that reveal what really happened behind the spectacle. Fact number 1. The script was almost trashed before anyone read the title page. The original draft was considered too strange by the studio. Buried in a drawer at Warner Brothers, it mixed broad physical slapstick with a kind of street-level grit from a city still patrolled by cruisers with metal dashboards. This was before Hollywood streamlined comedy into safe formulas. It was only because a lone junior executive quietly pulled the script out one afternoon, laughed once, and pushed it into development that the film survived. That tiny moment of recognition, a single, spontaneous laugh, is the only reason the entire cultural phenomenon exists today. Fact number 2, the cast was trained at a real police facility, carrying the bruises to prove it. This was long before Hollywood built hyper-realistic training compounds, before productions could simply rent a digital backlot. The actors were instead forced to run drills on cracked pavement, used actual riot shields, and marched under instructors who didn't care they were famous actors. Several left those early sessions with bruises they had to cover with thick makeup before stepping in front of the camera. The authentic discomfort you see in those training scenes is real, a piece of the suffering required to make a truly physical comedy back in that era. Fact number 3, the role of Carrie Mahoney, the heart of the film, almost went to Tom Hanks. This was in the early days, before he dominated every decade, back when he was still defining his career, and before you could watch him at home on VHS whenever you wanted. Hanks read the script and liked the tone, but he ultimately declined because he didn't want to get boxed into broad comedy, fearing it would limit his future dramatic roles. He later joked in an interview that someone else got the keys to the police car first. It's a fascinating cultural what-if. An entire comedy legacy resting on the back of a single career choice made decades ago. Fact number 4, the loudest fights happened off camera, necessitating an invisible buffer actor system. The tension didn't come from the script. 2 prominent cast members developed a fierce antipathy for one another during week 2, clashing so badly that producers kept them separated with meticulously planned call sheets. They never filmed a scene alone together again. If you watch closely, every shared moment between the 2 characters has at least one buffer actor strategically placed in the frame, creating a human barrier to control the static tension that buzzed around the set. Fact number 5, Michael Winslow's signature sound work was not written into the script. Winslow's character, Larval Jones, defined the film with his incredible vocal effects. Back when improvisation was a high-risk move that often stopped production, Winslow simply layered effects into the scenes, radio static, siren wails, engine stutters, that nobody had prepared for. The cameras kept rolling only because the crew was so stunned they couldn't stop laughing. The editors later realized the gold they had and built entire action sequences around the sounds he provided, turning an actor's spontaneous gift into a cinematic icon. Fact number 6, a major stunt on the obstacle course collapsed early, sending a performer to the hospital. The recruits tumbling over barriers in that iconic scene used real, rickety wooden structures intended for actual cadets. This was before safety standards mandated reinforced rigs, before studios routinely used high-precision doubles. One structure collapsed prematurely, sending a performer down hard. The stunt artist cracked 2 ribs. Production paused for hours while they quietly replaced the entire structure with reinforced steel painted to look cheap and worn down, a dangerous cost hidden beneath the laughter. Fact number 7, the film's female lead, Kim Cattrall, nearly walked out over her character's treatment. Cattrall's character was originally supposed to appear in several risque gags that she felt trivialized the role. Tension built on set as she refused to perform the material. In a high-stakes standoff, the director cut half the planned material and rewrote the rest of her dialogue in a single night. The new version transformed her into the confident, straight-edge presence that steadies the whole film. Her battle for respect quietly defined the central tone of the entire comedy before modern contracts protected actors from such material. Fact number 8. The captain's office smelled like genuine cigarette ash, grounding the set in a forgotten era. In the scenes set in the captain's smoke-filled office, the atmosphere was authentic. This was before prop departments used synthetic smoke, before most institutional buildings went entirely smoke-free. The art crew filled ashtrays with real cigarette butts collected from the lot. By midday, the room smelled exactly like the precinct's officers remembered from the 70s. A sensory detail that anchored the actors in the rough, unglamorous reality of institutional life back then. Fact number 9. The iconic podium scene where Mahoney messes with Captain Harris almost didn't make the final cut. Test audiences howled with laughter during this sequence, experiencing the communal joy of a shared cultural moment that defines the film. But studio executives feared the gag was too far and potentially too crude for a broad comedy. They tried to cut it 3 separate times. The scene only survived by a popular revolt from the viewers, proving that in that era, the audience still had the power to save their favorite jokes before digital anonymity fragmented the cultural conversation. Fact number 10. Steve Guttenberg spent most of his days constantly bruised, suffering for his art. Guttenberg, playing Mahoney, did nearly all the falls, the Pratt runs, and the stair tumbles himself. This was long before studios routinely hired high-precision doubles, and before contracts mandated extensive safety equipment. He wore thin knee pads under his uniform, but they barely helped to cushion the constant physical abuse. By week 4, his shins looked like a roadmap of colorful bruises. What audiences saw as effortless slapstick was a performance built on genuine, painful suffering. Fact number 11. The riot sequence used real street gangs as extras, creating an uneasy authenticity. For the climactic riot sequence, the production team went deep for realism. Toronto police helped to select actual street groups who were comfortable in front of the camera. They wore their own jackets, their own haircuts, and their own street swagger. The production got an unmatched raw authenticity that a casting call could never achieve. In return, the city got a unique and uneasy moment of cooperation during an otherwise anxious decade, creating drama in the background that amplified the action. Fact number 12. The famous Blue Oyster Bar setting was never supposed to be funny. In the early drafts of the script, the Blue Oyster Bar was simply written as a normal, forgettable dive bar, a simple landmark on a map, not a set piece. But on the day they shot, the set decorators transformed it with heavy leather, low lights, and a jukebox that echoed through the cinderblock walls, giving it a very specific, intimidating atmosphere. The cast walked in, froze at the sight of the transformed space, and the legendary, unexpected gag was born on the spot. Fact number 13. Commandant Lassard, played by George Gaines, could barely see during his most iconic scenes. The character's signature look included vintage military frames. The glasses he wore had prescription lenses that were not his own, making it almost impossible for him to focus. Gaines constantly stumbled through doors, misread his marks on the floor, and squinted so hard in confusion that the director, realizing the unintentional comedy, kept almost every single take. His genuine confusion became the Commandant's absent-minded, lovable character, proving that sometimes the best acting is simply an actor trying to survive the technical setup of the scene. Fact number 14. A nervous crush developed on set, forcing producers to quietly manage a romance that threatened the rehearsals. This was 1984, back when film sets were closed environments where relationships formed and fell apart in high-pressure situations, often without public knowledge. Producers quietly worried about a potential romance brewing on set when a young cast member developed a crush that threatened to spill into the high-stress rehearsals and distract the ensemble. Supervisors stepped in swiftly, adjusting the schedule and moving the 2 actors to opposite ends of the shooting week. The tension never made it to film, but it buzzed around the closed production like static electricity. Fact number 15. One of the high-speed motorcycle crashes used in the film was entirely real and resulted in a broken wrist. During a high-speed sequence, a stunt rider took a corner too sharp, a common problem back when the choreography wasn't digitized and practiced 100 times. The bike slid under a parked unit, sending a shower of sparks across the pavement. Crew members rushed in, and the rider stood up, shaken, with a broken wrist. The footage was too chaotic to use, but the immediate danger pushed the production to reinforce the stunt helmets with metal inserts for the remaining action sequences, a critical safety change born of pain. Fact number 16. The The fantasy of the iconic police shower scene hit a brutal physical truth for the actors. Those iconic Academy tiles were absolutely freezing, and the water was bone-jarringly ice cold. This was before sets routinely used heated rigs that kept actors comfortable during long takes, back when filmmaking often required actors to endure genuinely uncomfortable conditions. By hour 3 of filming, several actors were shivering uncontrollably between shots, wrapped in thick blankets while the camera reset. The laughter you hear on screen was often a nervous release from the cold and the long, grueling process of shooting a comedy fast and rough. Fact number 17, the parade sequence nearly triggered a city shutdown mid-shoot, putting the entire film at risk. For the climactic sequence, the shoot blocked a real traffic artery on a weekday morning. This was long before digital crowd replacement existed, meaning they needed the actual streets. Thousands of commuters were rerouted, and the disruption was so severe that a police captain threatened to pull the permit mid-scene. The crew raced against a ticking clock of bureaucratic and city chaos, managing to finish the shot with seconds to spare before the full weight of the city came down on the production. Fact number 18, Michael Winslow's spontaneous noises caused a near-fatal lighting accident. Winslow, improvising on set, delivered a sudden, shocking tire blowout noise that wasn't expected. The volume and the unexpected nature of the sound startling a grip who dropped a heavy lighting flag. The flag dragged a light down, missing an actor by mere inches. Nobody was hurt, but it shook the entire crew and proved the physical danger inherent in that style of filmmaking. The close brush with disaster caused the production to shorten all future setups to reduce the overhead risks, a hidden consequence of the spontaneous genius that defined the film. Fact number 19. A private nonsense chant developed by the actors became a secret, living piece of the film's canon. To stay loose and build team cohesion, the cast developed a nonsense chant they used during warm-ups, half military cadence, half playground rhyme. This private internal joke then crept into background scenes, barely audible to the audience. It now lives in the film like a secret handshake from a closed-door era. Only those who listened closely on late-night rewatches or who lived through the era of non-fragmented communal viewing might recognize this quiet mark of belonging, a testament to the tribal bond forged during the chaotic shoot. Fact number 20. A near romance between two leads never progressed, but its chemistry is visible on the film. Though a full, on-screen relationship never materialized, there was an undeniable, deep chemistry between two of the leads. They spent long nights together, sharing jokes and running script rehearsals that stretched late into the evening. They managed to keep it professional, but a genuine spark of attraction emerged in their subtle glances and improvised lines. You can see it if you watch carefully, an energy the script never planned for, a quiet reality captured on a dusty roll of film. This unscripted human element is what makes the film feel so alive. Fact number 21. The final riot sequence almost ended in a disaster that required medical attention. The climax involved smoke canisters to create the necessary atmosphere. One canister malfunctioned, releasing far more haze than planned and bathing the set in thick, gray clouds. Actors stumbled through the sudden, intense fog, blinded by a sting that hit the throat and eyes. Crew members frantically opened every door they could to vent the space. One performer needed immediate medical attention for the inhalation, proving that the chaos that you see on screen in that moment was dangerously, terrifyingly real. Fact number 22. The film's release weekend became an instant, unexpected cultural ritual. The film's massive opening surprised even the studio, not just because of the numbers, but because it instantly became a shared cultural ritual. Back when comedies could dominate an entire season, when crowds filled every seat in neighborhood theaters with sticky floors and humming projectors, Police Academy didn't just entertain, it carved a permanent place in memory, loud, chaotic, and impossible to forget. The strange little film that almost died in a drawer became the kind of cultural moment that stays with anyone who lived through that era of late-night rentals and comedies made with real danger tucked behind the laughs. Police Academy doesn't look like the kind of film anyone would build a legacy on. No capes, no spaceships, no Oscar speeches, just misfits in blue uniforms, cracking jokes in echoing hallways of an academy that feels like every institutional building from that decade. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, metal desks that never quite shut, but that's exactly why it lasted. It came from a moment when comedies were shot fast, rough, and sometimes dangerously, when stunt pads were thin and night shoots stretched until the sky turned gray. It belongs to an era when a film could live for years on late-night television, on VHS tapes lined up under boxy tube sets, on memories of crowded screenings, where the laughter hit in the same places every time. Under the slapstick and chaos, what survived wasn't just the jokes. It was the feeling of a world that's gone now, still alive on a dusty roll of film, preserved for those who remember it all.